It was just a normal Saturday afternoon. A teenage girl, a quiet street, a family home near the coast. By the end of that day, everything had changed. A child dead, a community stunned, a case that would go on to haunt the country, whispers of a stalker, a mystery man, a father under suspicion. Years passed, trials came and went, but still, the question remains, what really happened that afternoon in the garden? This is the story of a girl who never got to grow up, and a truth that refuses to surface. Who killed Billie-Jo? For years, Hastings had been seen as the perfect escape, a coastal town with clean air, calm seas, and the kind of quiet people move to when they want a fresh start. The history was rich, the parks were green, the shops were quaint, life here ticked along softly. That's where our story begins, a Saturday afternoon, mid-February, 1997. Welcome to Unveiled Crime Mysteries channel, where I unveil mysterious true crimes, some lost to time, others fresh in memory. Justice might not be served, but the shadow is unveiled. On Lower Park Road sat the Jenkins home. Sean, the father, Lois, the mother, their daughters Charlotte, Annie, Maya, Esther, and Billie-Jo, their foster daughter. The date was February 15th. It marked the end of the half-term holidays. Kids were off school, the weather was strangely warm, families filled Alexandra Park across the street, walking dogs, soaking up the sun, a normal day. Billie-Jo was in the garden, painting the patio doors, Annie was around, Sean was in the house, Lois had taken Maya and Esther for a walk with the dog, Charlotte was out, offered her clarinet lesson. That walk with the younger girls hadn't been planned, it came after an argument. Billie-Jo wanted a pair of trainers, Lois had said no, voices were raised, tension lingered. Billie-Jo's best mate, Holly, had offered to pop round and help her paint, but Sean told her not today. Billie-Jo was meant to see her biological dad that weekend. It wasn't a good time. The girls were close, inseparable. Helenswood School, long talks, laughter, E117 blasting through the stereo. As the day drifted by, Sean left to collect Charlotte and her friend from their lesson. Annie went with him. Billie-Jo stayed back, still painting, still listening to music. They dropped the friend off, then drove home. Charlotte ran inside, headed upstairs, put her clarinet away. When she came back down, Sean said they needed to head out again, White Spirit, to clean up some paint Billie-Jo had spilled. They got back in the car, made for the DIY shop. But before they reached it, Sean realized he didn't have his wallet. They turned back. It was 3:30 p.m. when they pulled up to the house again. Charlotte went inside. That's when she found her, out back, on the patio. Billie-Jo, 13 years old, on the ground, face turned to the side, blood everywhere, still clutching the paintbrush. Charlotte screamed. Sean rushed in, got the girls out, shut them in the playroom, called for help, their neighbor and friend, Denise Lancaster. Denise came fast. What she saw stopped her cold. Billie-Jo's head was shattered. She didn't want to touch her. She told Sean to call an ambulance. She said Billie-Jo's head was lying on a bin liner, and part of that bin liner, it was lodged deep in her nostril.
Thank you. Go ahead, caller. Where do you need the ambulance?
48 Lower Park Road.
Lower Park Road.
Lower Park Road, Hastings, and it is an emergency.
And what's happened there?
I don't know. My daughter's fallen, or she's got head injuries. There's blood everywhere.
What, she's banged her head and bleeding from the head?
Yes, well, I don't know. There's blood everywhere on her head. She's lying on the floor.
And can I take your name, sir?
Sean Jenkins.
The emergency crews flooded in, sirens, uniforms, chaos. The quiet of Lower Park Road shattered. One police surgeon, hardened by nearly 3 decades on the job, took one look and said, "I have 26 years of experience of being a police surgeon, and this is without doubt the saddest and most brutal murder I have ever attended." Elsewhere, Lois was walking in the sun, unaware. She rang home, thinking the weather was too good not to enjoy together. Sean answered. "Billy's had an accident." Lois rushed back. A police officer met her at the door. He had tears in his eyes. He took her inside. Billie-Jo had been beaten to death, bludgeoned with an iron tent peg, 18 inches long, the kind you'd find in a shed, the kind that had in fact come from their own. It had been left out earlier that day. One of the other kids had placed it near the patio. There was no sign of sexual assault, no evidence of a break-in. Middle of the day, sunshine, families in the park, and a child murdered in her own garden. Who could have done that?
Billie-Jo was attacked with a tent spike as she painted a back door, left alone for just 40 minutes as the rest of the family went shopping.
The police got to work, questions were asked, and then Sean shared something that made the hairs on the back of their necks stand up. He said he'd seen a man, 2 weeks before the murder, in their garden, 2 weeks before that, across the road, in Alexandra Park, staring at their house. It hadn't been a one-off. The side gate had been left open more than once. It made them nervous, so they installed security lights, locked the windows. Locals had been uneasy too. Alexandra Park had become a hotspot for trouble, drug deals, men flashing themselves. 1,000 people had signed a petition for more police presence. Next door to the Jenkins home, the house was abandoned, boarded up to keep vandals out. Could someone have been hiding in there, waiting? Billie-Jo had told friends she felt someone was following her. A white man, in his 40s or 50s, wearing a leather jacket. Sean said he'd seen someone who fit that exact description, and this wasn't new. 2 years earlier, Billie-Jo said she felt stalked. Her school knew, so did the police. She got weird phone calls, someone saying she was being watched. No voice, Lois said, just silence on the other end. Detective Superintendent Jeremy Payne confirmed it. She had told her parents and friends she felt she was being followed and had spotted a man on some occasions. It appears that she felt this man was paying particular attention to her for some reason. By the end of '96, Sean and Lois were thinking about leaving Hastings, and for Billie-Jo, it was one more chapter in a hard life. The violence didn't start after the wedding, it started before. 3 weeks before they got married, Lois said Sean lost his temper and slapped her across the face. That's what she told police. Then a few weeks into their marriage, it happened again. Another outburst, another slap. She said she was shocked by how fast his mood could turn. She felt afraid. When he snapped, he didn't shout. He'd just explode, sudden, fast, then switch off, as if nothing had happened. But it didn't stop there. It got worse. She said one night in East Ham, he struck her again, pulled her hair. It was long back then. She said that was the first time she felt truly scared of him. She told him it had to stop. And that time, he didn't deny it. He admitted it. He had a temper. Before that, he always pretended it didn't happen, wouldn't even talk about it. When social services came to place Billie-Jo with them, Lois never told them about any of it. Now Billie-Jo was gone, and the focus was firmly on Sean Jenkins. He told police that when he got home that day, he went into the dining room to turn down the music. He said Billie-Jo didn't respond. He walked over. I then noticed a bubble from her nose, and I believed that she was alive at that moment. I also noticed that I had blood on my hands. I felt sick. That day, he'd been wearing a blue fleece, trousers and shoes. When forensic teams tested the clothes, they found over 100 tiny blood spots. The exact number depends on who you ask, but prosecutors said they were clear. That was impact spatter from the blows. Their version was this. After picking up Charlotte, he came home, lost control, killed Billie-Jo, and then rushed back out, trying to make it look like he'd never stopped. The route he took was long, winding, deliberately slow, all to buy time, to build an alibi. The gap between him arriving and leaving again, about 3 minutes. Sean denied it all, said he didn't kill her. But there were things that didn't sit right, strange choices. He said they'd gone out to get white spirit, but police later found some already in the house. And after he found Billie-Jo, he didn't stay inside. He left the kids with the neighbor and went to sit in his car. He later said that was a mistake, a moment of shock, and got back out again. Still, the blood spots told their own story, and on the 14th of March, police officially charged Sean Jenkins with murder. April 22nd, 1997, East London. Billie-Jo's funeral. Her coffin was taken by horse-drawn carriage. Nearly 300 mourners walked behind. Some had travelled from Hastings to be there. It was a day of grief and silence. Just before the service began, Lois arrived with her 4 daughters. Deborah, Billie-Jo's biological mum, froze on the spot. She had specifically told Lois not to come. Deborah burst into tears, turned and ran. Her partner followed. They left the service. They never came back. Sean was out on bail. He didn't attend the funeral at all. By June 1998, the trial had begun. Sean Jenkins now stood accused of murdering his foster daughter. The press packed the courtroom. The prosecution said the motive might never be clear, but the opportunity, it was right there. They said Sean killed Billie-Jo during the short time he was alone in the house with her. A moment of anger, a tent peg, a burst of violence, then out the door, back in the car, taking his daughters on an oddly long drive to the DIY shop. Charlotte, his daughter, told the court the route he took was strange. He looped the park twice before heading towards the shop. Bethune Way, St. Helens Road, then a big circle before finally turning towards Saddlescombe Road North. They reached the traffic lights near Sainsbury's when he realized no money. They turned back. 15 minutes, total. The prosecution said the journey wasn't just long, it was calculated. A cover story. The blood on his clothes was their main evidence, but the defense pushed back, hard. They argued the blood got there when he bent over Billie-Jo's body, when he tried to help, when he moved her. They said air escaped her lungs, forced out, spraying him in the process. To prove it, they ran an experiment in court, but the pathologist for the prosecution, Dr. Ian Hill, didn't buy it. He called the test quite unrealistic, said the air volume used was too much, and that the blockage had been in her lower airway. But later, it came out, the obstruction was in her upper airway after all. Still, the blood was examined under electron microscope. Dr. Jeremy Skepper from Cambridge said there were white particles in the blood, damaged skin cells, from her scalp. Another expert, Professor David Salford from Kiel, said it plainly, the idea that this spray came from breathing. Impossible. Given her injuries, he said, the theory just didn't add up. I still doubt whether she would have been able to inhale 2.2 liters with a gasp, but I accept that at the very worst, she might have been able to. It is very unlikely, but I can't say it couldn't possibly happen. He added, if she had gasped like that, it would have been obvious, and Sean never mentioned seeing it. Another forensic expert backed it. The blood spatter on Sean's clothes matched what you'd expect if someone delivered blows to a bleeding head. None of the paramedics had that same blood pattern, neither did Denise. Dr. Ian Hill, who carried out the post-mortem, said the bruising on Billie-Jo's arms and hands looked like classic defense wounds. She had tried to protect herself. A video of Billie-Jo's body was shown in court. Her mother couldn't bear it. She walked out. Her father followed. Members of the jury were visibly shaken. The gallery gasped. Even Sean was given permission to leave the dock as it played. The footage was grim. Billie-Jo lying on her back, her white shirt soaked in blood, her head caved in. Then Sean gave his evidence. He said he panicked, that he went to call an ambulance, but the phone rang as he picked it up. He slammed it down. I didn't want to speak to anyone. I just panicked. He was asked what he did next. He said, I went down to her and whispered to her gently, and I don't know what I did next. Why did he use the phone in the hall and not the one closer to her? Because the girls were screaming and screeching and crying, and I wanted to be near them. I wasn't sure whether there was somebody else in the house, and I didn't want to leave the girls. I didn't make a rational decision. Why didn't he put her in the recovery position? I'm not even sure I knew what the recovery position was. When I saw Billie, I was stunned, and I didn't know what to do when I panicked. The prosecution wasn't convinced. They said the delay in calling 999, the decision to sit in his car, and his strange behavior, it all pointed to guilt. A neurologist disagreed, said it could have just been shock. There was another complication, the children. Lois told police that the girls had changed their stories. At first, their accounts supported Sean's timeline, but later she claimed they no longer stood by it, and because of that, they weren't called to testify. One statement from Annie, which the court never heard, claimed Sean once punched her so hard in the stomach, she had to lie down. When asked about punishments in the house, Annie replied, but doesn't every family have a naughty stick? Lois herself never testified either. Not for the prosecution, not for the defense. The trial lasted 19 days. 15 witnesses gave evidence. Doctors, scientists, experts. The jury went out, deliberated for 2 days. On the second day, the judge said he would accept a majority verdict of 10-2. But they came back with more than that. Unanimous. Guilty. Sean Jenkins was convicted of murdering Billie-Jo. He was sentenced to life in prison. People in the gallery cheered. Some shouted yes. The judge, Mr. Justice Gage, told him, by any standards, this is a horrendous crime. The fact you committed this crime, the circumstances in which it was committed, and the way in which it was committed, lead me to conclude that you are a very considerable danger to the community. There is only one sentence. You'll be sentenced to the equivalent of life. The headlines were brutal. Deputy Head gets life for Billie-Jo's murder. The mask had slipped. The trusted man, the school figure, the family man, now labeled a killer. Lois filed for divorce. She left the country, took the children, moved to Australia. She remarried and had a son. In a statement, she said, 16 months ago, I returned with 2 of my children from a quiet Saturday afternoon walk on the beach to a tragedy more horrific than any person ever expects to encounter in a lifetime. It is a terrible thing to realize that the man with whom you have lived for 14 years, the father of your children, is capable of murdering your child. There is no reason, no explanation for such a pointless waste of a young life. Now that the trial is over, the girls and I need peace and quiet to come to terms with what has happened. At the retrial, Denise Lancaster took the stand. She was the family friend Sean had called after finding Billie-Jo. Denise told the court what she saw that day. Billie was lying on the patio, head turned to the side, one hand near her face, the rest of her body flat, legs together in a way that didn't look natural. Denise said she looked like she was sleeping. She bent down, touched her hand, touched her cheek, but the moment stopped her. She froze. She said it was clear. Billie was too badly hurt. She couldn't bring herself to move her. She told Sean to call an ambulance, got a towel for the blood, went back outside. That's when she saw it properly. Billie's head wasn't just injured, it was destroyed, her skull shattered. The only movement was the blood running slowly from her nose. The right side of her face hadn't been touched. Denise said Sean was wearing a blue fleece that day. She remembered because later, at her house, he left it behind. She picked it up. Lois saw it too. She told Sean, "Your coat." He replied he didn't want it. She said, "It's freezing out there. Take your coat." Denise also remembered being with Lois when the police mentioned the blood on Sean's clothes. She said Lois looked at her and asked, "Why did Sean kill Billy? If he was ever going to kill anyone, I am sure he would kill me." Then came the question of motive. The prosecution had a theory. Billie-Jo hadn't turned the music down. That was it. That was the trigger. "You attacked her in a terrible temper in a matter of seconds," said the prosecutor. Sean replied, "No, I didn't attack Billy. I didn't pick up the tent peg. There was no argument whatsoever. When you left Billy, she was almost dead, wasn't she?" "No, Billy was not dead. Billy was alive, and Billy was well." A witness told the court that Sean had a strange look on his face as he rushed out of the house and told Charlotte and Annie to get in the car. As part of the retrial, the jury visited the house on Lower Park Road. Then they retraced Sean's drive to the DIY shop, the strange, winding route around the park. The forensic evidence from the first trial was re-examined. This time, experts challenged it. Some said the blood spots could have ended up on Sean's clothes if he had held Billy while she was dying. One expert, Professor Robert Schroeder from Imperial College London, went further. He told the court that the blood contained more than just blood. There were traces of metal, of bone, of paint. The idea that Mr. Jenkins could have done what was alleged in the time he had and then gone straight out with his daughters in the car is hard to believe, he said. The trial lasted 3 months. The media were everywhere. Cameras, headlines, pressure. Then the verdict, or lack of one. The jury couldn't agree. They were dismissed. A second retrial was ordered. Before the second retrial, new claims surfaced. Dr. Skepper, the same forensic expert from the first trial, now said the blood might contain fragments of bone, paint, metal, but the judge threw it out, too late to be submitted. A senior prosecution source said, "This evidence about the bone in the blood was completely new, and we are extremely disappointed that it did not go before the jury." Then something strange came out. Sean told his legal team he had seen someone, a man in the hallway when the ambulance arrived. He thought it was a police officer, dressed well, calm, confident. It was this fact that reassured me he was a police officer. The man was standing in the hall. I turned around and looked at him. He said, "She's going to be okay," then left me staring at the door to the dining room. I honestly believe this man is responsible for my daughter's murder. I believe he killed her in cold blood for reasons that I can only speculate and surmise. Sean said the man had been hiding in the dining room, then stepped into the hallway. Denise didn't believe a word of it. She said the man never existed. When asked why this hadn't come up before, Sean insisted he had mentioned it in his first witness statement. He said the police never followed it up. They never challenged it. In 2005, ahead of his second trial, Sean requested the names of every officer who entered the house that day. One name was missing, the man from the hallway. Despite this, the second retrial went ahead. October 31st, 2005, courtroom packed again. Same charge, same pressure. The prosecution made their case. They said there was no mystery man, no intruder, no phantom in the hall. They said it was Sean, and that it doesn't take long to kill someone with an iron bar, not long at all. If she did not die instantly, she could not have lived more than a few minutes. It's a mercy she was unconscious, the prosecution said. They accused Sean of changing his story. One moment he said he went into the house before driving to the DIY shop, then he said he didn't, and then Sean admitted something. He had hit Billie-Jo once. "I heard a noise upstairs, so I went up, and Billy was pulling heads off dolls. His daughter Esther was upset and asked her to stop, and Billie-Jo swore at her and pulled her hair. I prized one of Billy's hands off Esther's hair and then slapped her face. He said it wasn't hard, but he regretted it." He also described another time when Billie-Jo refused to look at Lois during a conversation. He said, "I turned Billy's face gently towards Lois and said, 'Look at your mother.'" Then came another accusation from a family friend, Peter Gamster. He said Sean had kicked Billie-Jo during a family trip to France. Sean denied it, but Peter didn't hesitate. "There is no such thing as a playful kick. It was a proper aggressive kick. He was furious. He was angry." Then came more. The court played video interviews from Billie-Jo's school friends. They said she'd told them Sean was violent, that he hit her. One friend, Laura, said Billie once turned up at school with blood on her shirt and face. She said her dad had punched her in the nose. Another time, she had bruises on her legs and arms. She said you can guess what happened. Holly, her best friend, said Billie once told Sean to leave their dog Buster alone. He pinned her to the door, scratched her face. Sean just lost his temper, Holly said. Billie-Jo had told them she was scared to report it. She worried her foster parents would lose their jobs. The court also heard a disturbing detail. Lois had told police one of their daughters believed Sean favored Billie-Jo, that Billie, quote, flirted with him. Lois later said, "Don't recall her saying it in that situation, but there was a whole guilty thing, and that was a part of it. But I don't recall her telling me that specifically." The prosecution described Sean Jenkins as a bully, a liar, a man who snapped and killed a child in cold blood. The defense said he was a victim of bad science and worse luck, a man wrongfully accused. The jury went out. They spent 39 hours over 8 days trying to reach a verdict. They couldn't. No unanimous decision. No majority. Nothing. The prosecution dropped it. No third retrial. On the 9th of February 2006, Sean Jenkins was formally acquitted of murder. Then something else came out. Lois's full statement about domestic abuse was finally revealed. It had been under a court order. Now it was public. The jury had never heard it. Not in the first trial. Not in the retrials. Despite changes in the law that allowed judges to admit character evidence, her testimony had stayed buried. Lois also said Sean had once had a sexual relationship with a teenage girl, one who looked like Billie-Jo. That claim was ruled inadmissible. Even as he battled cancer, Billie-Jo's father, Bill, came to every hearing. After Sean's acquittal, he went on the radio. He said, "I do feel regrets. I should have been a better father. Obviously, I'm not proud of the things I've done in my past. I feel if I'd been a better father, then perhaps Billie-Jo may still be alive today, but I'm not holding myself to what happened to my daughter. There's only one person I hold responsible. He died not long after." Sean Jenkins was now a free man, but the public didn't forget. Outside the Old Bailey, as he stood in front of cameras, 2 women ran at him. They punched him, kicked him. They were Billie-Jo's aunts. One of them said they were taking him back to court, this time civil. "We'll see him again in court. This is not the end." Then Sean spoke. He said Billie-Jo's murderer has escaped detection because of the dreadful errors in the police investigation and their single-minded and desperate determination to convict me at all costs. The police who have been in charge of the inquiry have been willfully blind and incompetent. The investigation had been massive, 700 witness statements, 3 trials, 36 days of jury deliberation, and still no answer. Assistant Chief Constable Jeff Williams of Sussex Police said they would review the case again. The role of the police is to investigate crime, and that is what Sussex Police have done. This remains an unsolved murder case. It will, as a matter of course, be subject to review, which we will conduct with an open mind. Billie-Jo had been killed in the back garden of her foster home, a place where she should have been safe. Later that year, Sean Jenkins gave an interview to Trevor McDonald, a special report, Billie-Jo and Me. He said he'd lied on his CV because money was tight. He wanted a better job, a bigger salary. He said the odd route to the DIY shop, that was because it wasn't safe to turn around on the street. Then one of his daughters got upset that she couldn't help with painting, so he decided to drive back out. He denied being abusive. "I have never beaten my wife," he said. He claimed Lois was vulnerable and that the police had convinced her he was guilty. He denied hurting the children, but 2 of his daughters released a statement after the program. "The comments made by our father, where he denied using corporal punishment against us, are not true." Sean later went back to university. He studied criminology, social research. He started a doctorate. "I'm in my final year of my doctorate, and I'm enjoying understanding more and more about my case and what happened to me. I want to be able to use what I have learned to help other people who go through the miscarriage of justice experience." After his release, Sean Jenkins wrote a book, The Murder of Billie-Jo. In it, he told his side of the story, his life, his trial, and the man in the hallway, the one he claimed he saw, the one he thought was a police officer. After the book came out, a former neighbor said she remembered something strange, a newspaper report from back then. It mentioned a passing driver who saw an unidentified man leaving the house that day. Like every other lead in this case, it went nowhere. Sean said that since his arrest, he had only seen his daughters once, for 2 hours, back in 1998, while still in prison. He hadn't seen them since. Still, he said, he hoped to one day see them again. He tried to claim damages for wrongful arrest and imprisonment. The claim was denied. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Justice confirmed it. Billie-Jo's stepmother, the widow of her biological father, welcomed the decision. "Myself and the family think he had a cheek to put in for that money. I was pleased he didn't get it, because I don't think he should be a free man. As far as I'm concerned, he should still be inside, but he has just denied it all the time." She added, Billie-Jo's father would be delighted that he was turned down because he felt in his heart that he didn't have any doubt about who did it. And then, long after the verdict, one person who hadn't spoken publicly before came forward, Lois Jenkins. She gave an interview. She said Sean was violent, controlling, a liar. "I can recall with clarity the look in his eyes as he told the children, 'Billy's dead.' It had no trace of emotion. I woke up in the middle of the night as he turned over in bed, and it dawned on me it could have been him. I lay there terrified thinking it must be him, and if it wasn't him, at least it could have been him." She said in the days after Billie-Jo died, Sean was cold, distant, absent. He offered no comfort. "I felt let down and also faintly embarrassed. I wondered if our friends had noticed his detachment." Lois said she had to leave the UK after Billy's murder. She lost her trust in the system. She lost her confidence. She blamed herself. Speaking about Billie-Jo, she said, "I grew to love her and regard her as my own daughter. She had a good rapport with Sean and I truly believe that she was happy with her new family.
As the 20th anniversary of the murder approached, Billie-Jo's biological mother, Deborah, called for the case to be reopened. It would be great if they could open the investigation again and get some fresh eyes on it. The police have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I can't describe it to you. Unless you have lost a child, it's a nightmare. I want to get justice for her. She didn't live to see it happen. Deborah died in 2018. But other voices kept pushing. Some in Billie-Jo's family wanted police to look again, not at Sean, but at someone else, a convicted predator named Anthony Amiela. The press called him the M25 rapist. Amiela was serving 7 life sentences for a string of violent sexual assaults. At the time of Billie-Jo's death, he lived nearby. Her aunt said he matched the description of a man seen following Billie in the months before she was killed. She urged police to reopen the case. The police must find out what Amiela was doing on the day she was murdered. Somebody murdered Billie-Jo and we've got to find out who it was. The police need to investigate all avenues. Amiela could have done it, and the fact is we don't know and need to know. Was he in Hastings that day? He had a known obsession with girls her age. He often used improvised weapons. Anthony Amiela died in prison on 8 March 2018. No record exists of him ever being named a suspect or investigated for Billie-Jo's murder, and so the case remains. Billie-Jo Jenkins, 13 years old, murdered in broad daylight on a Saturday afternoon. Her killer has never been found. It's one of the most notorious unsolved murders in Britain. Books, documentaries, talk shows, rumors, theories, but no justice. The investigation was messy, the science complicated, the evidence disputed, and the questions still unanswered. The people left behind still feel the weight of it. Holly, Billie-Jo's best friend, still lives with the grief. She was my best friend. We did everything together. We were inseparable. I wish I could have seen Billie-Jo get married and have kids. She's missed out on all that. It's so sad. In Alexandra Park, a wooden bench was put up in her memory, a quiet place for teenagers to sit together. In 2024, it was removed. The wood had started to rot, but the plan is to bring it back. Detective Inspector Kevin Moore said, "We owe it to Billie-Jo to keep the case in the public's mind and not give up. The case is reviewed every 2 years, always with the hope that something new will emerge. She was bright, she was sharp, she was funny, articulate, brave, someone with everything ahead of her. But because of what happened that day, on a warm February afternoon, Billie-Jo Jenkins will always be 13. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments."
For more real stories daily, subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll see you next time. There's always another case to be unveiled, remember.